I'll be turning 25 this year. I graduated from university, I have a job that pays my bills, and I decided I want to try learning to draw digitally. And by draw, I mean draw anime. To be perfectly honest, there is no deep reason behind this. I've always liked doodling when I was younger, and I really love anime, and that's about it. I used to try to doodle a lot in my notebooks back in middle school, but then high school happened, and then university, and let's just say adulting is hard and very, very time consuming. But now that I only have my job to keep me busy as compared to my university days when I had work and lectures and deadlines and exams and people forcing me to socialize and the societal pressure to get good grades and graduate, yeah. Now that I don't have to deal with most of that, I've been trying to feed more into all the dreams I had when I was a child. I did some traveling after I graduated. I finally visited some of the places I've been wishing to see for years. I started meeting up with my friends more often. And then I decided maybe I could learn to draw too. Am I just saying in a very roundabout way that I want to draw fan art? That is exactly what I'm saying, at least for now. And the fact that I can have a full time job means I have a better salary, which means saving up to buy a semi decent tablet wasn't impossible once I actually decided I'm gonna give it a try. It wasn't exactly easy either, but here we are now. So, this channel will basically be just my art journey as a newbie in their mid 20s, trying to chase the dream of a child I abandoned for the sake of getting an education that would secure a decent enough job for me so that I could be financially independent and pay off my student loan and still survive somehow. The idea was also so that I could feel mental pressure from myself to actually practice daily, or at least somewhat frequently. Because if I tell myself I need to do this because I need to upload a video, even if no one will say it, the chances of me actually getting to practice are quite high. On the other hand, if I tell myself I'm just practicing for myself, those childhood dreams will likely be waiting until retirement. And I'd rather not do that. Moving on to the studying. I can't draw. We had compulsory art classes throughout primary and middle school, so I'd say I'm better than an average preschooler, hopefully. Even to this day, I still remember some of the things we were told during those classes, so my knowledge isn't exactly zero. It's just really, really close to it. I also see those art hacks or guides on my Twitter timeline every now and then. So going into this, I really thought it would be more or less fine. Also, I'm not trying to be a professional. I don't particularly feel the need to speedrun my improvement. I just want to get to a level where I'll be able to draw images that are stuck in my head. And since I'm too lazy to go through all the fundamentals just for that, I'll brute force my way through it for as long as it will work for me. If at any point in the future I decide it's not doing it for me anymore, I'll switch to fundamentals and tutorials. But for now, it's literally just for fun. Fun and tons of frustration, of course. So, after my tablet arrived, I spent a few days just getting used to how all of this works and what layers and opacity are and all the different brushes and whatnot, and it was a lot. It was so much to take in that I just decided to go ahead and start drawing one day after procrastinating it for so long. And I told myself I'd figure out the rest on the way. Sounds easy enough, right? Anyway, let's move on to the actual practice day on day one. Here, I really just wanted to see what my level is, more or less, without looking at any tutorials and guides, and just going with what I know. I knew it would be bad, but it was more of an experiment for myself, so I told myself it's fine. It actually turned out better than I thought it would at the time. I mean, it's still really bad. I know that, and I knew that. But I think it could have been worse, considering it's just me drawing from my mind. I mean, worst case scenario, I'll make some other newbie artists feel better about themselves if they ever see this and be able to compare themselves to me. There's that, I guess. But anyway, I ended up with these three, and why are the bangs on the opposite side of the braid? I don't think that's how it works usually. Oh, and as you can see, I very visibly gave up by the end of it. This last character is just so bad, but I couldn't be bothered. Well, Let's just say I decided that maybe I should structure my brute force approach at least a little bit, which is to say, I decided to enforce the secret technique called references. As a side note, I was going to use them from the beginning anyway. We used them at school during art classes, so I was never going to avoid it during private studying. I'm just sometimes too lazy to take the time to think of what I want to draw, then look up the references, and then have to pick one or two. Plus, I'm actually quite busy with my work life and simply don't always have the time for it. That being said, I have another secret technique up my sleeve: being a weeb. Art-wise, I'm just a noob. I don't have style, I don't have technique. All I can do is try to copy the stuff I see and learn from it, and that's what I did. Starting off with one of the most nostalgic series there is for me, and also the one that happens to be my personal favorite for very much nostalgia-related reasons, Shaman King by Takei Hiroyuki Sensei. I adore the manga, all of it, and all the spin-offs. I grew up with the original anime, and I love it to death, regardless of how good or bad I actually think it is. Same with the remake and the Flower sequel. But I'll keep my anime rambling for another time when I feel more like it. Not only do I not have enough material to show on screen while I ramble, I also don't have the skills to make it interesting. Anyway, those were my thoughts on going into day 2. Starting off with my favorite character, Anna. Needless to say, skills don't magically improve overnight, but references most definitely help a lot, and they literally save me every single time. Unlike day 1, I actually had so much fun with this. I still think it ended up horrendous, and I thought so at the time as well. But I definitely underestimated how much joy there is in creating something for the piece of media you genuinely love. Although, in hindsight, choosing Shaman King wasn't the best idea. I realized it quite quickly, but basically, I was using art from the official art book and the revised manga edition, and while they're not as stylized as the original, they're still stylized a lot. Shaman King characters have bigger heads and thinner bodies. I think nowadays most characters are around 6 to 7 heads tall, while from what I guesstimated, Shaman King characters are around 4 to 5, maybe 5.5 heads tall. Their faces are also very stylized, with bigger foreheads and eyes being lower and more separated. For a beginner who was trying to learn the more modern anime approach, purely because it's easier, I still think it wasn't a good call. But I enjoyed it so much, you'll see me doing it again and again. Moving on, it would have really helped if I actually followed my own advice. See, I even wrote down here that Anna is more or less 4.5 of her heads tall, and yet I never actually used that and just eyeball it all the time. At this point, I wanted to make a rule for myself that I'd draw 2 full bodies and 1 face every day. And on day 3, when I was drawing Yo, I actually remembered to keep in mind how many heads tall he was. And that was the end of my progress. I still have no idea how I spent so much time staring at the references and still made his eyes look like that. Like, in my head, I genuinely acknowledged that Shaman King characters have their eyes separated more than what I'm used to. I knew that. And yet, what is this? Also, it was only here that I realized most art of characters that I see online will have them facing slightly to the left, and even if I never actually drew it enough myself before to get used to it, trying to do a character facing to the right was super weird and double super hard. Drawing in general was hard for me, but facing to the right was definitely too ambitious for my skill level. Moving on to day 4. So Yu and Hao are both tied for my second favorite character of Shaman King, but Hao may be like half a step higher on some days. It really depends on how I'm feeling at the time, and it will show. Even I can see it. I've learned my lesson about the heads, and I'm still using it. And I also remembered about the eyes. Yay! This already looks so much better, even if it's still bad. But at this point, I realized I was kind of cheating, because Hao's design is super simple when he's just standing around and doing nothing. It hides most of his body and doesn't really require me to think too much about anatomy and stuff. So drawing 2 poses like this wouldn't have helped me with anything, and I decided to be ambitious again, but not too much. He'll be facing the left because I am not going through the facing to the right frustration again and so soon. Here I made some character development. I decided that maybe drawing hands as some random shapes wasn't the best way to go about it, so I started at least trying to make their outlines. It was literally just me drawing lines and then connecting them at the bottom, and that's it. For a first attempt, I think it ended up surprisingly good, but then I realized my mistake. Hello's trousers. As I said, I've seen and read Shaman King like 10,000 times at this point, so I knew there was something funny going on with them. But it was only when I opened up at a reference that I realized I fucked myself over so much. But I was also stubborn, so I did it anyway. And then for the face, I went with the anime style from the remake. Everything until now was based on manga and the official art book references, and this last one was from a screenshot from the remake anime. And this day, I actually still like it. Drawing this specific profile made me realize, even looking at other two poses, I could still see that they're definitely better than everything I drew before that, maybe even much better. But no matter what, even though I drew them on the exactly same day, this last one, the house profile, at least to my amateur eyes, was leagues ahead of the other two. And the reason for it was quite simple, because I followed the reference. So for every other sketch I did before, I was using references more like reminders of how the characters look, their hair, clothes, and all that stuff. But I wasn't trying to redraw them. I was actually changing the poses or expressions slightly to make it more mine, whatever that means. And I think that's how actual artists out there work. But I'm not a professional. I'm not even a good artist. By using references as guidelines and changing anything I wanted to change, I was trying to use the skills I just didn't have. And that's why it looked like shit. Because of course it would. At the beginning, I literally decided to ignore the fundamentals so that I could brute force my way through practicing. And then I thought I'd magically have the skills that come with knowing these exact fundamentals I was ignoring. It doesn't work like that. And the other thing I realized was much simpler. Basically, in art, if I like the face, I'm more likely to like the rest of the body. So from day 4, I learned 2 lessons. One, to just stop being stupid. I decided I would awaken my inner Kakashi and just copy everything for the time being. And lesson number 2, I should probably focus on just faces and upper bodies for now. Full bodies can wait for when I'm at least not hating everything I draw. That's how we have day 5 and more Shaman King. But this time, I actually tried my best to copy every reference the best I can. I drew Anna twice just to prove she is my favorite character. I did her so dirty on my second day. I'm so sorry about that. I was really happy with this, so I moved on to Yo and these stupid headphones. This is not something a beginner should be drawing, which is why I'm sorry how, but I went for a very easy headshot. Sorry. And here are the boys. They're better than what I thought they would turn out, but Anna is still definitely my top one. But that's not the end. Originally, I downloaded like 20 or something references for all the characters I like, which is almost everyone. I wanted to draw so many of them, like Faust and Elisa, who are my 4th and 5th favorite characters, Jean and Lyserg, and Joko and Silva, and so many of them. But as I was drawing June and Ren, I realized art is really time consuming. Drawing just these 6 took me 2 hours. If I were to draw everyone I liked, it would take me literal days. And I was kind of torn because I genuinely love Shaman King and I would gladly spend days drawing just it. But then there was a more logical part of my brain telling me that if I do it, I may shoot myself in the foot for the reason I already mentioned, because of how stylized the art style is. This was a really good practice, but I didn't want to learn to draw only in this art style by mistake, so I ended up only drawing these 6, and that's it. To be honest, I still like them a lot. I'm obviously recording this voiceover in the future, and by now I've drawn other stuff and improved quite a bit, I think. But I do still like these, and I think it's because I actually followed the references in earnest, and because I love Shaman King. So, thank you, Shaman King. And I'm sorry for butchering your characters so much. I promise I'll draw them nicely in the future when I'm hopefully somewhat better than I am now. On day 6, I decided to try to copy something more recent and ended up drawing Mao Mao and Jinshi from the Apothecary Diaries because it's an amazing series and everyone should watch it and then go read it. I love the light novels so much. Mao Mao was much easier than Jinshi. I don't know if I'm just more used to seeing anime girls rather than anime boys, and that's why drawing them feels easier, or if I just found a weird reference for Jinshi. It could have been the fact that he's facing to the right again, but after a lot of tweaking it, I ended up with these. And I was really surprised with how much I liked the end result. Again, this is because I was just scoping and didn't change anything. At this point, my mind was really starting to trick me into thinking that, hey, maybe I can actually do it. Maybe I can be good. Then day 7 came. I decided I would redraw my very first attempt to see how much I've improved, with no references at all, even for the eyes or hair or clothing, none of that. Only what I had in my head, and my god, was I not ready for everything that happened to me during that practice session. The first comment I'm gonna make is that I don't know why, but I feel like my initial sketch always makes the characters look slightly down when I'm trying to tilt their head in any way, and I have no idea how to change it. With this one, I was actually trying to make her look down while tilting her head back. So the drawing itself should be from a lower angle, but she ended up the exact opposite anyway. I tried to fix it, but I couldn't. So I'm just gonna leave it for future Q to worry about. Back to the sketch. I can definitely say that drawing all those faces paid off, because even though it's not the best or it's not very good, I think I did a decent enough job, and it's only been a week at this point anyway. I also had no idea what I was doing for her clothes, since I never actually practiced drawing them. Well, like I said, if I like the face, I'll like the rest, and I did like her face while sketching it. But then came the other difficult part, the hair. I actually remembered to have the bangs be on the same side as the braid, but I wasn't sure how I wanted them to look. I was trying to go more for this side bangs style and not the usual straight, but with no references to help me, I kind of just left it as it was, even though I thought it looked meh. I never ended up liking this hand either, until I realized it will help me hide the braid that I had no idea how to draw, and then I just loved it immediately. And here's where I decided I could maybe use it for a thumbnail if I managed to actually make this into a video, which I did, obviously. In other words, I made a terrible mistake of thinking to myself, surely coloring can't be that difficult, right? Well, it was. It absolutely was. I knew nothing about colors. I knew nothing about color theory. I knew nothing about how to pick colors for a character and their clothes and not make it like I threw up on them. How do colors work? I still don't know, even as of the recording of this. I ended up just going with one of my favorite colors and making everything a variation of it. Also, can I just say that now I understand the artist's struggle of liking your sketch more than line art? It's tough, really tough. Back on the topic. As I was coloring it, I was also getting this weird feeling in the back of my head that she reminds me of someone, but I couldn't for the life of me remember who it was until I showed it to my friend and they pointed it out to me. I felt so betrayed by my own mind. And the worst part, I don't even play Genshin. Not because I don't want to, but purely because I prefer to game on my PC and not my phone. But my PC is old as shit and it can't really run any recent games anymore. It can only really handle the old stuff. But I was so I will probably work on her in the future to change some of the details to make her more hair, but I'm still not sure how. I don't want to change her hair color because it is genuinely my favorite color. But maybe the hairstyle or the eyes, I don't know. Another problem for future Q and not for me. Also, look at me trying to pretend I totally know what I'm doing with these shadows and stuff, when all I'm actually doing is imitating the effects I remember seeing on Anime Art Online. Fake it till you make it, but so far I'm only faking it and failing miserably. But here we are now. We have my very first sketch on day 1, which took me roughly 20 minutes, and then we have the same character drawn over 8 hours of practice later. Drawing just this on day 7 took me over 2 hours, which is why I didn't bother with the other characters I drew on day 1. Their time will come eventually at some point. So, yeah, I'd say the improvement is definitely there. Do I like this piece? No, I don't. And I didn't like it at the time either. But that's fine. I actually expected to hate pretty much anything I tried to draw for the first few weeks. What matters is that when I put these two together, I can see I'm improving. I don't know how long it will last, but a week before this, I never would have thought I'd be able to draw even something like this. So I'll stick around and practice for a while longer. I'm also curious to see how long it will take me to draw something original, so not copied, that I'd be genuinely happy with. Like, genuinely happy. I hope it won't have to wait for years before it happens, but we'll see. As of the recording of this, which is somewhat in the future, it still hasn't happened. If anyone actually found this video and stayed until the end, thank you. Thank you a lot. And I'll hopefully be back with week 2 in a few days. So, yeah, that's it from me.